All right, we made it again.
I'm just staring at the camera.
Just look at the camera and smile. You're doing great. This is our 6th episode. You're really getting the hang of this. Hey, I'm Roger,
I'm Lisa.
and this is the Lo-Fi Check-In. So let's check in, shall we? How are you all doing in this crazy time?
Messed up world.
Yeah, we're
But
really
we're doing the best we can.
one foot in front of
telling
the
him that.
other. Yeah.
Gotta be positive. Take care of ourselves.
Oh, man, it's hard, isn't it? That staying positive through this whole situation, no matter what your leanings are, one way or the other. It's person against person right now, and it's frustrating. So this is not going to be like the most feel good lo-fi check-in. So, but I mean, reality says that. There's a lot of things about reality that are hard, and we have to deal with them. And so you can't hide from them. The best way to handle it is head on, and just deal with it and get through it. And hopefully you come out the other end stronger, at least alive. That's the main thing. So anyway, I mean, on that kind of somber note, we usually do a news, mental health in the news kind of segment. And I think the biggest thing right now is what's going on in Afghanistan. And we're both kind of, we've have definite feelings about Afghanistan. Our oldest son served in country in a combat outpost for 8 months. And so, it was probably some of the hardest times.
Oh yeah, we went like 2-3 weeks without communicating because we had no idea.
And so we understand, but right now there's kind of a crisis with a lot of people served in Afghanistan over the 20-year period, over 20-year span. I mean, hundreds of thousands of service members have served in Afghanistan, and they've worked hard, and they've known people who've sacrificed everything for that, and all of a sudden, within 11 days, everything that's been worked for has crumbled. And it's left a lot of service people not knowing how they feel about it. I mean, feeling bad about it for sure. But I mean, and so I think the biggest thing is with if you know someone who's served in Afghanistan, or if that is really check in with yourself, check in with your people, and see that they're doing well. There is a veterans crisis line, and really you can get the help. You just type in veterans crisis line, it comes up. There's a 1-800 number, 1-800-273-8255. But encourage people to reach out and talk to someone about how they're feeling about Afghanistan, because it's. I remember watching. That the service, that 12 or 13 service members have been killed, and I just this pit in my stomach about that whole situation, and just the unfortunate nature of it, and really feeling bad, not just for our people, but I mean the whole people in Afghanistan having to deal with that, and we don't really realize how good, even though here it's we're going through a lot of mental anguish with COVID and those things. We're not really, there's really, if you're not vaccinated, no one's going to come and behead you, or if you are vaccinated, beheading is not a thing here, and that's an actual risk over there. So anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about addiction. Yeah,
it's better.
Yeah, it's better. So addiction is something that I think we need to talk about. It goes hand in hand with mental illness. And so much so that multiple surveys have found that about half of the people who experience mental illness during their lives will also experience a substance abuse disorder. So when we talk about addiction, we're talking about, and they say substance abuse disorder, but really it could be, I mean, the myriad of things you could be addicted to. I mean, I don't want to just say this is about drugs or this is about alcohol or this is about any one specific thing. I mean, there's all kinds of substances that make us feel good, and it doesn't even have to be a substance. It could be an activity like exercise. I mean, some people, if taken to the extreme, can absolutely be addicted to the act of exercise and the feelings. And we're going to get into kind of the nuts and bolts of addiction here, but
as much as we can.
As much as we can. I mean, we're not
doctors. We're not experts.
I ain't no doctor. People. I'm just a normal person. And sorry. And so when we look at it, when at least half of the people who deal with mental illness will also deal with this is significant. We have to, okay. So as defined, addiction or substance abuse disorder is a chronic relapsing brain disease that is characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite harmful consequences. And it's considered a brain disease because the drug or the active, whatever it is, changes the brain's chemistry and structure and how it works. Okay, so that's the thing. So we have kind of a, when we look at the homeless crisis and the people that are, choosing to be, despite being offered opportunities, they choose to do that. I mean, is that a mental illness or is it as a result of addiction? Well, technically, because of the way that they define it, those people are mentally ill because of choices so they've chosen to be mentally ill. And again, what comes first? What is but really it starts with a choice. And so, but at the end of the day, they are absolutely considered mentally ill due to this what they're doing, how it affects their brain with a brain disorder. Okay, so why do people take drugs, or why do people do things that are addicting?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first thing we have to kind of talk about. What it is about it that makes people say, "Oh, I want to do this." The four big reasons why people do drugs, alcohol, whatever. I say drugs because it's the easiest thing instead of saying, so we're just going to say drugs, but by saying drugs, that encompasses
a lot of
different behaviors. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a substance. So anyway, first reason is to feel good. Okay, they do it because, hey, I want to experience a high. I want to get high and feel, because there's some drugs that make you feel euphoric or powerful or some other kind of feeling that you just can't get through regular everyday life. The second one is to feel better. So the first one is to feel good. The second one, this is where I fall in, to feel better. You're dealing with something. You have anxiety, you have depression, you have another, you may just have chronic pain, and you take something to feel better, to not feel so impacted by your condition. And so that's one way. And a big thing is opioids with that. I mean, people who fell off, a horse or something, or a bike or some other thing, and they hurt their back, and so they get opioid painkillers, and that they get addicted to that. So to feel better. The other one is, this is a smaller segment, but to do better. Some people take performance enhancing drugs, or they know that they take cocaine because they can get a lot done. I mean, it enhances their performance to a degree, or they feel that it does. Some people, feel anxiety to a degree that they need to take something in order to, perform in whatever degree that is. And the last one is this is a lot for adolescents, is just curiosity or peer pressure, where they're like curious. Oh, what is that? Let me try that. I mean, I remember when I was a kid and, a friend drank a beer and I was like, ooh, a beer. That's that. I mean, and I was like nasty. 16. Well, yeah, but it was like I wanted a beer like really bad because I wanted to be, try it and be cool. And then of course, when I drank my first beer, I was like, oh, this is horrible. Great. Anyway.
Well, I think it tastes gross.
Well, yeah. And I'm not a big fan. Anyway. All right. So understanding that there's risk factors also that go in with dealing with drugs and really a likelihood, and really one of the biggest risk factors is having a mental illness. I mean, that's something that you're trying to escape. So that's a big risk factor, and that's under the genetics, and we'll talk about that in a second. People who experience aggressive behaviors in childhood, whether you are the victim or you are the person who's giving out the violence, some way or another, there's been some kind of violent trauma that's a risk factor. Poor social skills, if you don't feel like you fit in or have anxiety about just living in life in general. Poverty makes your social status is a big precursor to it, because generally if you've grown up poor, you've dealt with a lot of challenges, and you've probably, chances are, been exposed to people in your sphere of influence who have been on drugs or have dealt with drugs. Negative relationships, and really that's, again, people who are who you look up to, who are your idols or whatever, people that in your life, if they're criminals or drug users, there's a greater chance you're going to end up like, just because that's the way that you're going. Those are the influences that you have over you. And then scientists estimate that genetic factors account for between 40 and 60% of a person's vulnerability to addiction. So again, 40 to 60%. I mean, so really, if you've been dealing with mental illness and you haven't had an addiction, you're kind of in the minority. Now, one of the biggest things as far as the genetic side is adolescence, because a person's brain there's parts of it that aren't fully developed until they're in their very late teens, and some in their early 20s. And so, it's a challenge. I mean, so if an adolescent takes a drug, it could be significantly damaging to their brains.
Right.
Okay. So let's talk about the brains for a minute.
Okay.
So yeah. So because really what drugs do, what addictions do, is they affect the brain. Izzy, our dog's over on the bed.
She's always interrupting.
If she would just be quiet while she rubs all over the place, that would be awesome. Thank you. Here, jump up there and join us.
Come on.
While you're adding to this. Nope, don't want to do it. All right, well then go be quiet. Okay, so brain areas affected by drugs. Three main, you'd say most of your brain, but your brain stem, the cerebral cortex, and your limbic system. And really it affects, the first two, the spinal, the brainstem controls things that are critical to you, heart rate, breathing, things like that. Cerebral cortex, that's where your thinking is. You have your frontal lobe, and that's where the main thought processes of your brain are. And then the limbic system, that we kind of talked about it when we were talking about creativity, but it's also where your pleasure center is, your reward center is. And so those are like the main parts of your brain that are infected. I was going to say
infected.
I was going to say
affected.
Affected. Yeah, I didn't want to say infected. But in a way, that is true, that it's infected, because so really, okay, those are the areas. But how do drugs do that? And we all know about neurotransmitters. So there's not everybody. I mean, there's how the brain communicates, because really everything up in your brain is there's got to be communication between the neurons to do different things, different tasks, to remember, to smell, to do basically everything. This is a big old live computer, and it's dealing with inputs and outputs at all times. And in order to do that, to communicate it, you have receptors and you have neurotransmitters. And what drugs do is they mess up the connections between and sometimes they could actually kind of mask themselves as a neurotransmitter, and so the receptors take that in, and then it affects those parts of the brain. Okay, so really that's in a nutshell, and it's really wrapped up with especially that limbic system reward part of the brain, because we want that reward. It makes us feel good, and so because we don't normally get, our biggest rewards are food and sex. Those are the two biggest things that like pop our reward center normally. Speaking of exercise, that also does, but I mean the two, as far as output of rewards, satisfaction, like when we like eat a big burrito, and it's like, this is the greatest burrito I've ever had in my life, and you get that umami. Like that. I mean, but you like something. You like, there's things that you like that you eat that you're like, oh, that's so good. Like fish, fresh fish, like for you. Yeah. I mean, it's that thing. And then sex, of course. That's one of those. We won't go into that. We won't show anything here. This is not that kind of show. But
he's gonna drink his coffee now.
There
you go. That's something I really enjoy.
Yeah, right? I mean, that's coffee. It's like, Anyway, I won't give you that face anymore. And so that's how drugs get in there. And they say that, I don't know how they do it, but part of the thing is that some of the things that people take into their body have 2 to 10 times the amount of reward feeling, euphoric feeling, than food or sex. And so it's very impactful. And
part of me would love to try some of the, this might sound weird, just to see. I wouldn't want to get addicted, just to like, what would cocaine do to me? I want to see what I'd be like on cocaine.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to see
get addicted, but
what that would look
part
like.
of me just would love to. I'm not going to try it. By no means would I ever try it, but
right,
I'd probably get addicted to it.
Well, but see,
and curiosity,
and see, that's the thing is that feeling, that intense feeling of euphoria or reward.
Yeah, like I want to feel that.
It makes. So we're kind of hardwired to go towards things that make us feel good. And when we, experience that kind of intense, it resets our brain to want that, to get to that level. And so even if you do something one time, it's a danger. I mean, you're taking, a chance that your body's going to crave that.
Well, just like, I went mountain biking. I do mountain bike. I haven't mountain biked in about a year, and I went out with a friend about 3 weeks ago, and it's like, I went out. It's like, now I crave it. I want to go again. We're actually going to go tomorrow, but I kind of get addicted to that feeling. I got to do it. Got to go do it.
Yeah, yeah, so, but that's a natural one. So it's not nearly as on the spectrum. But like I say, when you talk about drugs being 2 to 10, I mean, imagine that feeling that you got, but imagine it 10 times greater. I mean. It would be, so when people have extreme seeking behaviors where it's like, I have to have this, that's where it comes from, is this intense feeling. So anyway, and it's really, it floods, the biggest neurotransmitter is the dopamine. That's what, the pleasure hormone. And so, it's not really a hormone, it's a neurotransmitter. But anyway, dopamine kind of floods the system, and it does these things to your parts of the brain where it makes you feel this way. But it also, if you notice, people can't really walk very good, or they have problems with their motor skills, or talking, when talking starts getting slurred. It's these parts of the brain that are being hijacked by whatever you're on. And so the problem is it could turn into a real permanent situation. And addiction, I've dealt with addiction to food and to alcohol. And so I understand exactly. And I also understand how hard it is to deal with once you have it. It absolutely takes that kind of edge off your depression. You don't have to worry about that. But then it also causes a lot of other problems. Obviously, relationship problems, legal problems. I mean, addiction to anything is something that you have to wrestle with. I mean, for most people, if you're not addicted to anything right now, good, stay that way, because then you don't have to worry about it. Because getting off of these things is very hard, because you have to practically rewire your brain. And the things that you're going to rewire your brain with do not offer the same level of satisfaction that the drug or the activity, whatever it is, that did. And so it takes a huge amount of time, effort, willpower, blood, sweat, tears to get to a place where you don't feel that. And so, we're not going to really go into the recovery side, because there's so many different, depending on what you're doing. But understand that it's a process. You don't just say, okay, I'm addicted to this and I'm going to stop. I mean, it doesn't happen in this world. It's a process that needs to be undertaken, where you make small changes over time, and that's really the best way to do it. But it's eliminating, for some drugs, you can't. I mean, you can't, like, oh, I'm gonna wean myself off of crack or meth.
Well, even I was on Paxil for anxiety for about 5 years, and I decided I don't need to be on it anymore. So I went cold turkey, and I had withdrawals. I was throwing up. It was not so.
Yeah. So there's slow, and it's a process that needs to be overseen by somebody who knows what they're doing. Yes. I mean, you can't say, okay, I can do that. I'm not doing cocaine anymore, and dump it. Yeah, right. And so you can't. So what I would say, as far as I don't have information on how you kick it, other than professionally, with help and with the support around you. Doing it by yourself is not ever going to work. I didn't. When I made changes in my life, I didn't do it alone. She was there. I had other support around me. It just doesn't happen in a vacuum by yourself, and when you want it and how you want it. So seek help. And there's no problem with that. I want you to know there's 58 million people that deal with mental illness in this country. That means there's 27 million people that deal with addiction. I mean, just because of the numbers. So you're not alone. By any means, you're not alone. And this is it. There is, there's a stigma. I mean, I get that, but there shouldn't be. I mean, no, you're a human being. If you are struggling with addiction, reach out. I mean, we'll talk to you for sure, and we're going to tell you, let's plug you into a professional environment where they can, make it. Your chances of success are far greater. So anyway, that's the deal with addiction. If you're dealing with addiction, you're dealing with mental illness, the biggest takeaway of this is that I hope you understand that you aren't alone, that you are, it's fairly normal. That doesn't mean continue. That doesn't mean, keep going down that rabbit hole, because that doesn't end well. It just means that it's all right. Just, you're a human being, and let's just reach out for help and get you out of that hole and moving on with your life. So anyway, if you have any questions whatsoever, hit us up. We're around. We love talking. This is the thing that we love to do, and you should love talking too. And if you don't, get with us. Let's get you to a place where talking isn't a problem, because we all need to talk. So we're going to sign off this episode of the Lo-Fi Check-In, and we hope that you're doing wonderful. As best
Friday,
as
have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. Go outside, do something, because pretty soon it'll be rainy. Pretty soon.
Don't say that.
Yeah. We'll all be drinking pumpkin spice pretty soon. So anyway, take care. Have a great weekend, and take care of you and your people. And we will see you back here next Friday for another episode. Episode 7.
Episode 7.
All right. Take care.
Take care, guys.
And if it stops,